Hello, my name's Emma Sabzalieva. I'm Head of Research and Foresight at UNESCO's International Institute for Higher Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, or IESALC. I'm joined today by my colleagues Dana Abdrasheva, Eglis Chacón, Luz Gamarra Caballero, and Bosen Lily Liu. We're delighted to present our new report, The Higher Education We Want, Youth Voices on the Futures of Higher Education. In this short presentation, we'll share some of the perspectives of youth on their visions of the futures and the role of higher education in those futures.
IESALC's Futures of Higher Education project is our institute's contribution to the broader UNESCO initiative on the futures of education. In our Futures of Higher Education project, we have focused on bringing forward visions for desirable future scenarios, which has made it critical to consult with diverse groups of participants to capture different visions. You will notice that we use futures in the plural to emphasize the plethora of possible pathways for higher education. Previously, we worked with a global group of higher education experts from 22 countries and with almost 1,200 members of the public from close to 100 countries in a public consultation. The youth consultation that we are presenting today is the phase 3 of the project.
So why has you been divided into a separate category, you might think? Well, during the public consultation, it was observed that youth participation was quite modest at about 20% of total responses. Yet, it was critical to incorporate youth voices into discussions about the future. As a result, it was decided to conduct a separate phase focusing just on youth. As such, the value of this report is that it was inspired by the voice of youth from around the world, who generously share their thoughts and perspectives on the future of higher education.
When we consulted with youth, we unlocked the simple truth. Listening to youth allows us to make further transformations because they're like bridges connecting higher education and the external realities. When we listen to the youth, we can improve higher education processes and stay relevant to the needs of society. As our director has said, when we listen to the youth, everyone benefits. We were not alone in this endeavor of listening. The youth consultation was organized in collaboration with the UNESCO Associated Schools Network and the International Center for Higher Education Innovation under the UNESCO office in Shenzhen, China. We're very grateful to ASPnet and ICHEI for their partnership.
Throughout the 3 phases of the project, we use a 2050 horizon to help participants structure their thinking about their futures. Participants were also asked the same core questions which you see on the screen now. And in this phase, youth first shared their hopes and concerns, and then focused on their visions of future higher education and its contributions as we think towards 2050 and beyond.
We worked together with our partners to organize the youth consultation. After selecting the participants, they or their parents or caregivers for those aged under 18 completed consent forms. Facilitators were trained by UNESCO IESALC using a bespoke model that encouraged active contributions from each participant. Ahead of the workshop, participants completed an online questionnaire designed to be accessible in all locations and available in English, French, and Spanish. Responses to the questionnaires were anonymous and confidential. At the workshop, groups of up to 10 youth engaged in interactive discussions for between 1.5 and 2 hours. Participation in both the questionnaire and the workshop was voluntary. Following the workshops, a debriefing session was held with the facilitators to record their feedback and observations. The data from the questionnaire was then coded, categorized, and analyzed according to the themes emerging from the responses. Coding was conducted in stages and included peer review to ensure consistency and readability of the codes?
In the 2 phases, a total of 120 participants completed the youth consultation, 84 completing the questionnaire and one of the 10 online workshops during the Global Student Forum in December 2021, and 36 completing the questionnaire and then in-person workshops held in April and May 2022. 2 workshops were held in Shenzhen in China and 3 in Caracas in Venezuela.
The youth participants come from 43 countries with the local youth workshop focusing on 2 locations. It's not surprising to see that the majority of respondents come from these venues, Venezuela and China. As you can see from the map, overall, UNESCO world regions were represented in this youth consultation.
In terms of gender distribution, 55% of participants identify themselves as female, 42% as male, and 3% respondents identify with a different gender identity. This could include, for example, identifying as non-binary or gender fluid. The age of almost all participants, 92%, was between 14 to 18 years old, with most aged 15, 16, or 17 at the age of the consultation.
We also asked the youth to tell us if they identify with one or more equity-deserving group. That is, from among those who continue to be marginalized or constrained by existing structures and practices in higher education. The 3 most frequently mentioned were living in a rural area, followed by identify as a part of an ethnic, religious, or linguistic regional minority, and or identify as a LGBTQIA+. In total, 71% of participants identified with one equity-deserving group. 10% identified themselves with 2, and 7% indicated they belong to 3 or more. These emphasize the ongoing need for higher education systems to change to better support students, rather than discriminating against them in both visible and invisible ways.
So now, having looked at the demographics, let's turn to the question of how do youth see the futures?
So, looking into the future, we asked the participants what they're most hopeful and concerned about when they think ahead to 2050. We found a striking similarity between respondents' hopes and concerns, although differently prioritized depending on whether it was seen as a hope or a concern. Global issues were the most mentioned because participants are both hopeful and concerned with, for example, the political situation between countries or human health and finding cures to illnesses. The next in frequency of mentions is climate change and sustainability, which was followed by mentions related to research, technology and innovation, and personal aspirations. So the quote on the slide vividly illustrates the combination of hopes and concerns. A 16-year-old female from Kuwait said, "Hopefully, humanity would have woken up rather than focusing on just the present. I hope that by 2050, they will have prepared for their future by investing in renewable energy, farming sustainably, consuming responsibly, and stopping deforestation."
Almost all the respondents, 93% of total, said that they plan to go to higher education. This is significantly higher than the current global enrollment rate of 40%, which we believe is mainly due to the selection process of this consultation. Only 2 participants said that they do not plan to go to higher education, and the reasons are very important because they inform us the current state of support structures available to students and direct us towards further improvements. One participant said he would not go to higher education because he identifies as a learner with special needs. And another participant said higher education would not be possible for her because I need to work to support my family.
Now let's see what are the benefits of higher education seen by youth. In addition to considering whether they themselves plan to participate in higher education, respondents were also asked to choose the top 3 reasons why they think people would want to go to higher education. One response stood out for being chosen twice as frequently as all the others combined: to increase their knowledge. Representing 2/3 of all responses, this demonstrates that higher education can provide an enormous, powerful driver for youth when they think about their next steps. This perception of youth needs to guide higher education institutions when they design their programs. Youth come with high expectations, and it is our responsibility to meet them.
Participants were asked what they would like to study if they go on to higher education. Almost a third learned towards science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, while 23% preferred the social science. 16% showed affinity to careers related to nursing, dentistry, or medicine, and a smaller proportion of participants showed preferences for the humanities and public affairs with 8%, and creative arts with 7%. As one participant from New Zealand said, I am fascinated by how the scientific world works and want to learn more and contribute to improving our world in the form of applied science.
The ideas vocalized by youth aren't finite, neither are they simple, nor are they straightforward. Youth want complicated and interlinked things. That being said, it's possible to identify 6 characteristics that define the vision for higher education that this group of youth proposed. Here they are, starting with the most frequent theme: accessible, innovative, high quality, sustainable, developmental, and equal. As mentioned, it goes without saying that this isn't an exhaustive list, but let's turn briefly to look at each of these using the words of our participants.
So when participants linked access and technology, they envisioned one of the solutions to widening access being through the advancement of infrastructure of learning. For example, as one said, higher education will be affordable to all and be accessible to all in terms of both cost and delivery. Innovation can play a significant role in increasing access because, in the words of a participant, AI-driven diagnostic assessments are likely to replace traditional grading, tests, and exams, and the virtual teacher is likely to replace a real teacher. So if these advancements become a norm, more students can obtain knowledge and with fewer boundaries along the way.
When respondents reflected on the content of higher education, they link quality and sustainability, and both need to become an integral part of their learning process. According to participants in 2050, higher education should be of optimal quality where the rights of both teacher and students are fulfilled. In addition to that, higher education will nurture sustainability skills because it will draw attention to, as one person said, rising concerns about global health, environmental, social issues, independently of their subject of interest of each individual. This means that higher education will develop a culture of sustainable living while learning processes are of the highest quality.
Developmental and equal. Participants see higher education as a time to develop and grow. It is time to expand mindsets and visions, aiming to fulfill this personal aspirations students come to higher education that needs to be, in the word of one participant, more specialized or perhaps tailored for student, and it needs to prepare them with the skills and abilities that they as individuals can allocate in their daily life. For youth, higher education in 2050 cannot be anything other than inclusive and fair. As noted by a participant, there will be no inequalities between students regarding their country of origins.
Based on the demographic of the youth we consulted and the vision they have put forward for higher education in our futures, what would it take to reach the higher education youth want? In the report, we have put forward 4 sets of recommendations that we would like to share with you now.
The first one is to raise educational expectation, which means supporting youth to connect their personal and societal visions and being more responsive to global and local societal needs. The second recommendation is to provide students and societies with tools for life that transfer into blended support services into pedagogical design and creating when they don't currently exist, or expanding mentoring programs.
The third recommendation is to call attention to global and local issues that could be achieved by opening new avenues for futures thinking and promoting service to the community. The fourth recommendation is to engage for better futures together by developing youth engagement strategies and consulting with youth from more diverse backgrounds.
So we'd like to finish by emphasizing again how important it is to engage youth in discussions about our shared futures. The major United Nations Transforming Education Summit in September 2022 was a global invitation to listen to young people and include them in decision-making that directly impacts their futures. Our report, The Higher Education We Want, is available now in English and Spanish by scanning the QR code that you can see on screen. So we also want to finish by opening up opportunities for future development. If you're watching this video, what can you do to implement and incorporate youth voices into higher education? Let's build the futures of higher education together for us all, for today's youth and for the youth of future generations. Thank you very much for your attention.